Hi, everybody. I'm Megan Janelle Zimmer, and I'm the creator of Emotional Engagement Design. And today we're going to have just a presentation where I will cover the ideology and the process of emotional engagement design. And then tomorrow, around I think 12:15, we'll do a workshop where we actually apply the process and workshop your ideas and apply it to your business. So let's get started. First thing you are all probably asking yourselves is, what is emotional engagement design? Have I heard of this before? Do I know what it is? Well, it is something that I created, and it is both an ideology and a process. And it's about applying both strategy and design to the most universal human decision-making factor, which is emotions. And when you need people in your business to make a decision and ideally choose you, how you are actually creating the emotional experience for them is what's going to be the deciding factor. So I define emotional engagement design as an intentional design of the underlying emotional experience of any event, product, or communication. And again, it's both an ideology that you can use. You can use it to think about it. You can apply it to things by just being more aware. But there's also a process and skills that you can use and develop to apply it specifically to things, and also develop your own skills in doing it, which is what we're going to cover today, and then dive really deep into tomorrow. And I assume you also wonder, who am I? And where did this come from? So I actually ended up creating this while I was the chief experience architect at the Future Project. And they actually asked me to come up with a system for how I was creating magical, impactful, inspiring experiences as part of their nonprofit. They actually wanted the dream directors of the Future Project, who worked in schools inspiring students, to be able to create the same kind of thing, to understand how I did it, and why, and what did I think about, and how did I apply it. And honestly, it was really hard to kind of unpack the way my brain works. And since that time, it has become a much more refined and sort of universally applicable method for engaging people emotionally, no matter what you are doing. Honestly, if you come into contact with humans, it's something you could use. You can use this as much for your sales strategy and your product design as you can for hosting a dinner party, because people are feeling something pretty much 24 hours a day. And the reason that emotional engagement design works and is a thing even is that every human being's decisions, all of them are emotional. We usually justify our decisions and start them based on logic and data and what we think we want, but you actually make every final decision because something felt good. Whether you're buying a car or a house or choosing a hairdresser. All of those things, you'll find, I wanted this color, I wanted these kind of seats, I wanted this and this and this, but you sat in the car and it felt good. Or the salesperson made you feel really good. Or the whole process of it was awesome and you were so freaking pumped. And if you had the choice of that versus a car with all the same specs, the whole feeling around it sucked, the choice is going to be pretty obvious for you. And that's what we're going to cover today, is how you can do that, how you can create that experience for people and apply it to your business and make yourself very successful doing so, and also make other people happy, which is kind of also my goal in general, because I would really like to have the whole world be a place where people feel supported and feel safe and important and loved all the time. Unrealistic? Yes. But the more people who actually are making things that are using emotional engagement design, are trying to make people feel good, the better. You're raising the bar a little bit. And the three most important emotions are the ones that are up there: safe, important, and loved. Those are three emotions that people usually spend their entire life trying to attain through all methods, through relationships, through work, through where you live, through your lifestyle design. Everyone wants to feel those things and feel them most of the time. So what if you were the person who is making other people feel that? You're providing that for them. And anyone who makes you feel safe and important and loved, you know, way more of whatever it is they got. I will go wherever I can for someone who makes me feel that whenever I engage with them. And what I want to teach today is how you can be the person who provides that for other people. So, how exactly does it help you? It's pretty much going to make everything you do go from good to great. I consider it about a 20% increase in impact. If you're doing everything else right, if you put so much work and so much study and so much effort into everything else you do, but it's kind of lacking that emotional story, that emotional journey, it's got holes in it, people don't know how they're supposed to feel, the framing is off, you're missing out on something. So one of the things I know that would helps do is brand loyalty. Because just like I said, when you make people feel safe and supported and important and loved, they want way more of whatever it is you got. And you can essentially blow your competition out of the water. Because you're the person that people want to be with, because you make them feel a way that they want to feel. And it's also super powerful in terms of sales strategy. That probably is obvious, but it's also some ways that I've personally applied it as, you know, I came from an event background, and that's kind of where this started. And when you can create an experience where you know people are engaged, and you can prove that, selling to sponsors, selling to investors is infinitely easier because you have more than just numbers and data to back up why this is really something that's going to work for them. And honestly, it can lead people to taking the action you want them to take. And that's honestly the biggest thing I use it for, is that you always want your customer, your client, your guest to take some sort of intended action in some way. Maybe you have a dinner party, you just want them to feel happy at the end, but usually you're trying to lead someone to a decision, to an action, where you want them to walk away with an impact. And you can actually design what you do to literally lead them there. Like you just took their hand and you're like, oh, of course you're going to do that. Oh, there's no other choice to make. And they're actually happy to do it. So let's dive in. That was mainly the summary of what it is and why it's important. This is the crux of it. This is the process. The elements of emotional engagement design are vision, frame, and flow. And we're going to go through all three today, and then tomorrow we're actually going to practice the skills and apply them specifically to your projects and your businesses. But one of the first things that you have to talk about for anything else is vision. Because you actually can't build anything without a clear vision. But this is specifically an emotional vision, a description around how you want people to feel when they're in contact with you. And you can't really even get to the other steps without it. But the thing about vision that is challenging and takes a lot of work is actually getting clear on how you want people to feel. And we're going to go into this very soon with vision. But when you aren't clear on it or specific, the feeling people are going to get is not clear or specific. So that's where we're going to start, with articulating your vision. And the second step is frame. Now, frame is about taking this amazing vision you've created. It's awesome, the feelings are great, they're very specific, and then people walk into it and they're like, whoo, nice. What do I do now? So frame is about giving context to what you are doing. And frame is about taking this amazing vision that you have and saying, this way, exactly this way, please come. Make this decision, see this thing, go this way, etc. So frame is about giving context, but also guiding and making sure people are never confused. And they will never make a choice you don't want them to make because you made it so obvious there's no other way. And that's frame. The last step is flow. And flow is about the emotional journey. Sorry. And both vision and frame are part of how you create flow. But flow is literally about having this, taking your vision, whatever that is, using frame to create an experience from beginning to end. An arc of completion that is an emotional journey and that has no gaps. And what we're going to talk about when we get to flow is confusion, frustration, and boredom. And when people feel those, they don't really like you anymore. No one wants to feel those. It's kind of the opposite thing of safe, important, and loved. People want to feel those things. No one likes feeling confused, frustrated, or bored. So, are we ready to learn about vision? So quiet. Okay. All right, so we're going to dive into vision, and there's 2 sections to vision. And this one we're going to be able to practice tomorrow in the workshop. And it's, what do you see and how does it make you feel? And this is the entire baseline and foundation for what vision is and how you design experiences. Because we don't really think about it on a daily basis, but everything in the entire world is actually contributing to your emotional experience. It seems small, but right now, the fact that this auditorium is wood and not black is contributing right now. The fact that these chairs are grayish green and not red is actually part of how you feel right now. It's slight. It's not noticeable, but it's 100% there. And then if you take that idea and you apply it to what you do, you can actually make that an advantage. You can choose things that give people a specific emotional experience. The problem is that most times things are designed without taking it into consideration. The choices are just kind of made. And you choose that this table is plastic. You choose that this is made out of wood. You choose to paint the walls purple because you like it. But you can actually make all of those choices to create a specific emotional journey, a specific experience. And that's how we use it, and it's why it's the foundation of emotional engagement design overall. It's where you're gonna get clear. And this is what we're gonna do tomorrow. So this is a little preview of the project we're gonna work on for what do you see, how does it make you feel. We can't do this today, we're gonna do it tomorrow. But I want you to think about for a second. Could you make something as simple as an orange or a bottle of water give someone the feeling of anger just based on the size, the shape, the positioning? That's something to think about. We're going to do that tomorrow. Today, we're going to move on to the way we describe feelings. Because like I said before, a little bit, feelings have to be specific. They have to be really complex because human emotions are complex. If you want people to feel, you think you want them to feel happy, you want them to feel inspired, you want them to feel safe, okay. But those aren't really things you can design. They're so general that you can't make specific choices relating to safe. You need to get specific if you want people to have the specific emotional response that you're really going for. So metaphor is how we describe a vision. And yes, it's a part of speech that we all know about, but it's actually super effective in terms of describing something complex and nuanced and complicated, because that's what human beings are. Human beings are complicated, and our feelings of happy are also, there's probably thousands of different nuanced ways of feeling happy. You actually have to be the one to get specific on what kind of happy you want. And it is just essential to be specific. And that's how metaphor kind of works. And just to review, to just bring in the concept, metaphor is essentially just taking two dissimilar things and putting them together to create something new. And it's why it really works in terms of articulating a vision. So you kind of see up here this image. Something that metaphor does is actually help people relate to what you're doing. It helps make what you're doing feel familiar. Because you're taking something they already know, like the light bulb thing, which is actually advertising beer. But it's advertising light beer. And it used a light bulb. Oh, okay. People get it. You're actually giving them greater access to what you do by describing what you do in terms of something they already know. It works really well. And it is also just powerful. And we are going to learn how to make these metaphors. Not going to leave you hanging. But let's just explore metaphor for a bit, to sort of clarify what I'm talking about. Here's a metaphor. Now, you probably all have an emotional response to that on some level, but can you actually describe that feeling specifically? It's kind of complicated. You can try. You'll be like, it's sad and hopeful and is there one word for it? Not really. But you know what it is. You can feel it. You understand what that is. And so would your audience. And this is actually a metaphor I used before when working with the Future Project and designing this event called Dream Day, which I will reference tomorrow, and a business conference inside a carnival. Now, I was designing an event for teenagers in underprivileged schools in inner cities who had to show up to their school gym at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. And we also had a lot of really practical things we had to get them to do and understand and accomplish that day. But you're not going to get 16-year-olds to do that willingly or excitedly on their own. So this is the metaphor we used for the entire thing. And tomorrow I'm going to talk more about how that worked and how the metaphor applied to everything from the flow to the frame to how it was structured to what we did to what we chose to how we worded it to everything we did. And here's just a third example. And maybe this is one you might use if you were doing a fundraising event for people who were in trouble in some way. And you needed people to feel as if they were the latter. But everyone knows what these feelings are. They're actually, metaphors are easy to connect to emotionally. They're easy to understand. So, that's how metaphor works in terms of describing vision. What we're going to do right now, and if you want to try this as we go, feel free to take out your phone or a pen and paper and jot some stuff down. But I actually do have this in a one-pager PDF that I can send you all after. So you don't have to write down what it is, but if you want to work through it while I talk about it, feel free. So we're going to talk about how to make a metaphor. Because I've realized just saying, make one, is not, most people don't know how to do that. And this is a really clear way to think through what it is you do, what your product is, what your service is, and what you actually want out of it to get really clear. So step one of making a metaphor is to make a list of the feelings that you think your product should embody. So, you think about what it is you do and what you are creating. What are the feelings people should have when they engage with you? What do they need to feel in order for them to want to engage with you? So, random example, definitely not my project, but if you were creating a website for financial services to help people get their finances in order, what would you need them to feel in terms of that product? You actually might say, they need to feel safe and confident and at ease and clear and comfortable. And you can just go on for a list of what do you want people to feel when they come into contact with this. The next step is to think about experiences in the world that make you feel that way. So, taking the example of safe. I'm creating this website, I want people to feel safe. What kind of safe do I want them to feel? What's something that would make them feel the way I need them to feel or want them to feel in order to want to work with me? And say, again, I'm creating this website for people who want to get their finances in order. Okay, so I want them to feel safe. What kind of safe? Like if I was climbing a rock face and slipped and started to free fall and my harness caught me. Or maybe I want them to feel like, you know, there's a hurricane barreling down on their town, but they live in a hurricane fortified building and they have flood insurance. That feeling. So those are the kinds of ways you can take experiences from the world, real things that happen that are the kind of safe you want people to feel. I don't want them to necessarily feel the feeling of, I got in a car and put on my seatbelt. Well, that's not the kind of safe we're talking about. So first you do that. Think of experiences that relate to this word, and then reverse it. Think of things that make you feel the opposite. So if we're going with safe, in danger. What are things that make people feel unsafe, in danger in some way? You know, maybe you're thinking of, oh, what if I went on a hike at a place I thought I understood, but then got super lost and don't have GPS or supplies, and it's getting dark. Or you are trapped in a country during a pandemic and your visa's expiring and you can't get a new one. Or go anywhere else. Those kind of things. It is actually going to come from either your personal experience or your understanding of how other people would feel in those situations. So, if we're working through this, we've got the feeling of safety. We've got experiences that make us feel safe, experiences that make us feel unsafe. And then, look at them. Because you know your product. You know what you want people to feel. How could you describe that emotional experience in a way that really embodies the feeling you want? Now, in the example we're using, my web service is the harness that catches you. My web service is insurance in the midst of disaster. My web service is, etc. And that's something I came to with only one of the words. You can come up with 10 different feelings to embody what you want and go through this exercise for all of them. And then you've got this huge list of feelings. You should know how to take, you could take the negative with the positive or the positive with the positive, and using all that information, your metaphor should actually pop out to you. You should be like, oh yeah, that's it. Those are the things. I put those together, that's the feeling I want people to have. And that is how we make a metaphor, and we're going to make them tomorrow. So, in conclusion on vision, this is sort of like a homework assignment. Or just take this away with you. Some things that you can do is start to just notice the what do you see, how does it make you feel. You don't have to do it all the time. But just sitting at lunch later, or in your house, or in your hotel, just take note for a minute. Like, oh, it's interesting these walls are red. Would it be different if they were white? Huh. Or, oh, this is, would it be different if? It's usually how I do it. Like, it would definitely be different if all these chairs were bright theater red. There'd just be a different vibe. So it's just a way of looking at the world. And also just practice using metaphor to describe things, because it's helpful as an exercise. And tomorrow, we'll actually work on it. But that was vision! So quiet in here. So, I'm going to move on to frame. So, frame is how you take this amazing vision that you've got. You've got this awesome metaphor. You've got the business conference meets carnival. Cool. And you could just like throw that out there and make something with it. and it'd probably look and feel awesome, but you probably wouldn't get people to do the things you want them to do. Or it wouldn't be clear to them what you actually wanted them to do. They're just sort of like sitting inside this bubble of awesome, cool vision. But there's no context for it. They have no idea what they're supposed to do, or how, or when, or why. They're just like, cool. But that's not what you want. You don't want them to look at you and just say, oh, cool. You want them to do something. And you do that by using a frame. And frame is, in general, as like a design concept, it's just like the placement of things in space or context. But in emotional engagement design, it's how you describe an idea, a question, or a decision. How you make it clear to people what's supposed to happen and what they're supposed to do. Now, a way of thinking about frame is about interpretation. You can't leave things up to chance. People shouldn't have questions. It is your job as the creator of the thing to do the work in advance so that no one has questions. No one gets confused. You've done everything in advance so that everything is completely clear. And this is an example. So there's some apples up there. An apple can probably mean hundreds of different things. You can look at an apple and think New York City. You can look at it and think healthy eating, or computers, or fertility, or like there are so many things that could mean. If you don't actually tell me, frame it, and tell me how I'm supposed to see it, then I'm just gonna think whatever I want, which is why I say the spaghetti thing. It's kind of like being like, ooh, I got this. You get that, right? Like that makes sense? You just sort of threw it out there, hoping everybody understands it the way you want them to. And that's not their job. It's your job to put the frame on what you created so nobody has questions. They know exactly what they're supposed to see. They know exactly how they're supposed to interpret it. And then it's easy. And also, the thing about frame is that you kind of have to realize that people don't behave the way you want them to. People behave like humans. And humans generally walk through life distracted and self-centered and not at all thinking about you, your product, or certainly not interpreting your product the way you want them to. You actually have to consider the fact that people aren't thinking about you. And they're not going to look at this and do the work for you to figure out how they're supposed to see it or what they're supposed to do. But if you do the work, then everything's just clear. And people feel safe. And this is sort of how you can think about frame, and that the same facts presented in two different ways to create different outcomes. And they create different decisions. So that's what I mean by you created this amazing vision, but you can also have like people doing 100 different things and making 100 different decisions if you haven't told them and made it so clear what they're supposed to do. And one of the things that, just like side note on frame, people don't read. People don't read. People don't read signs. People don't read websites. People don't read directions. People don't read. So if the action of you need people to take is predicated on them reading something, it's not gonna work. Just boilerplate. Like in terms of an event, or you need to expose it to them so many times that eventually they read it, but unlikely that they will. Especially coming from events. Putting up signs, putting up one sign to point to where the bathroom is horrible design. Because no one's going to read that. No one's looking for it. It has to be in their eye line. It has to be where they already are going to see it. And they can't possibly miss it. So just boilerplate. Remember, if you remember nothing else, remember, people don't read. And people definitely don't read things that are small. If you're in a live event situation, you have to be like, yeah. So this up here is how and why you should use frame. And I've covered a little bit of this, but you're eliminating guesswork. You're making it so no one can make a decision other than the one you want them to make. So your communication is so crystal clear that there probably aren't even going to be questions. You've done all the work in advance. You provided everything. And they're just like, of course, that is what I'm supposed to do. It's literally like creating a yellow brick road for people. You're like, just follow that. And they're like, okay. And the only way that, and the path never deviates. The path never accidentally turns to a different color. And then they're like, what do I do now? You said follow the yellow brick road and it's not yellow anymore. So that's how you eliminate confusion and guesswork on the part of your customer or guest. And you also just really don't want to be misunderstood either. You don't want them to take what you had and interpret it a way you don't intend, because it just doesn't lead to the result that you want, right? I actually think about this. Flow is actually the true exercise in empathy. But there is a part of frame that also has to do with empathy. Because you are trying to take care of people. You're trying to connect with how they probably feel when they're coming up onto this button on the website. Are they feeling like they know exactly what they want to do? Or do they probably still have questions? How have you framed and guided to make sure that they feel safe and important and loved? You're taking care of them. You're framing it so they never have any questions. And tomorrow, we're going to do an exercise in frame. And this is really fun. It's actually kind of a group exercise, and we're all going to work together on how might we answer some of these problems. And how might we use frame to do it. Stay tuned. And the last part of emotional engagement design is flow. And like I said before, you've got this awesome vision that's clearly articulated. You have this emotional experience you want people to have, and then you've like put all the pieces together. So everybody's sort of walking in this specific way. They know what to do, or if they have to make a decision, they know exactly what to do. Okay, got it. Now you've created this pathway. Flow is how you make sure there aren't any holes, that you didn't leave them hanging. Because you might have a clear idea of the beginning and a clear idea of the end, and like you might put two things in the middle. But like, what's happening between those things? What's keeping people totally engaged from beginning to end? And the first part of this is the active part of actually mapping the emotional journey. And usually you can use this as creation. You can be clear on your emotional journey while you're creating something from scratch. But it's also something you can just go back and do now. It's something I actually do for people, is look at their thing and basically report on what their emotional journey is currently occurring as. What it actually is now, and like where are the holes? Where are people likely to drop off? And I'll quickly go to this, because this is where the drop off happens. Is when people feel confused, frustrated, or bored. So when you create the emotional journey, you are just laying it out from beginning to end. You've got your vision, you've got the frame, you know how to do that. The frame helps with the flow, because when people aren't confused and they don't have to guess, you've got the flow going. But you also want them to experience something that's kind of seamless, that's kind of, you probably have an idea of where they are when you meet them, and then where you need them to be at the end. One of a really important part of this is actually meeting people where they are. Because your emotional journey can't even start if people are coming in here. And in order to start your emotional journey, you need them to be here. You can't require them to make that leap by themselves. And the good example of this, more detail tomorrow, is Dream Day, when I had the high school students coming to their school gym on a Saturday. I designed the beginning of that event specifically and exclusively because I knew they were coming there hating us, essentially. They were coming in distracted, they were coming in like, oh my God, all my friends are here, why am I in my school gym, I hate this, ugh. I recognize that's probably the emotional state they're in when they arrive. So I can't just jump into my thing where I want them to be. I have to address that. I have to say, that is your feeling right now. What can I do to make sure that that feeling turns into the feeling I need you to have to then get you where I want you to go. And tomorrow I'll show you exactly how we did that. But that's what it means about flow and meeting people where they are. You can't expect them to leap. You gotta realize where they are, especially even if you're on a website. Like, do people come looking for you? Or do they stumble upon you and they're actually watching TV and doing 3 other things and like also talking to someone and they see your website? You have to realize that that's how they're seeing it. And not they're coming to it being like, ooh, what is this? I'm so interested. If you start there, then you're not gonna hook them because you've skipped a step. And this is the reverse. You create the journey, like positively going, okay, this is how the journey should happen. I'm gonna create it, I'm gonna design it, I'm gonna make it happen. Okay, cool. And another part of emotional journey mapping is looking for these. These are your sort of potholes. Is any moment where someone feels confused, frustrated, or bored. They're like the villains of emotional engagement design. And I kind of go by a 3 strikes you're out rule. Sometimes these are unavoidable because of things you can't control. For example, from my point of view, doing something live in events. I can't control what the sign on the building looks like. I can't control where the parking is. I can't control where the bathroom is. Like, this is the venue I chose, and I have no control over those things. And they may actually be confusing and frustrating. And so what do I do about that? Okay, I actually did an event last year where the bathroom was, I swear to God, like half a mile away. Seemed like it. And it was down like a long corridor and around 3 other turns. And then you finally got there. There was nothing I could do about that. I couldn't change it. But I recognized that that was what the truth was, and I made all kinds of concessions for it. I did all the work in advance to make sure people knew where the bathroom was, and they wouldn't get lost on the way there, and they wouldn't get lost on the way back. Like, that was how I compensated. So when you can't eliminate it, you can compensate for it. And people will appreciate that. You can see people's effort in those kinds of things, where someone really tried to make this better for you, even though it sucks. You know? Like, if you had a venue where there's also no air conditioning in the summer, but you provided like wipes for foreheads and fans and water, like, you did things to be like, I recognize this sucks, but I'm gonna try to make it better. Hope you like it. So those are the 3 things. Again, we've got flow from a positive standpoint of taking your vision from beginning to end, and then we've got the things you need to avoid, the things you need to make sure don't happen. And as you see up there, meeting people where they are is so, so important. If you're doing the work in advance, there's almost, they will jump on the ride if you meet them there, basically. So, these are the 3 pillars of emotional engagement design: vision, frame, and flow. As I said before, you've got your vision, you've got this super clear metaphor, you're designing what do people see, how does it make them feel, you're specifically picking things that match your metaphor so that people feel the way you want them to feel. And then you've got this amazing sort of experiential thing, and then you framed it so people know exactly how to see it, what to see, where they should go, they're never confused, and it goes from beginning to end. From the very first time they come in contact with you to the very end. You've taken it all into account, you know what the emotional journey should be, and you've eliminated as much of the confusion and frustration and boredom that you're capable of doing. So that is emotional engagement design, guys.